You may know that SketchUp provides you with some default templates to start your projects with. But did you know that you can create your own? These are perfect if you find yourself creating the same scenes and styles over and over again to get your projects set up. So let's talk about how you can create this template for yourself so that you can start your project 10 steps ahead. I'll tell you what's in mine, how to make it, and how to save it. If you'd rather just grab mine to use in your projects and alter it a bit to fit your workflow, you can find a link to mine in the description below. Let's take a look and see what is in my template. Of course, yours will look different than mine because it's going to be customized to your workflow and to your project type. I would love to hear what you put in your templates in the comments below. I'll click on my templates and you can see it's called Tammy's favorite template. I do have the heart on it, which means that every time I go to File New, this is what will happen. It will start a new untitled file, and this is my preset scenes. I've got tags, I've got styles, different camera views, things like that, different section cuts. So we're going to get into all of that. But first, we're going to start with the scenes at the top. I do have a cube in here that I delete when I start a new project, but it just kind of gives me a good visual for where to draw in the beginning along with my axes here. So I'm going to leave it in there just so that you can see what's going on with each scene. But again, I do delete it before I start working. First up, I've got my 3 different starting points. I have an on-site measure, tracing over an image, or tracing or working with a DWG file import type. So our on-site measure is if I am the first one on the project and I am taking measurements and drawing it directly into SketchUp. This scene here really reflects the plan view, the default template that SketchUp provides us with called plan view inches, but there are a few changes. So I do have a white backdrop. I'm starting in top view, but the differences is that my face style is slightly gray and my edges have the profiles turned off. So if I open my styles panel, you can see I've created an on-site measure style. And again, the difference between this and SketchUp's default is that the faces are slightly gray and my profiles are off. If I were to turn my profiles on, you can see that little green clock goes away, and that makes it not a fast style. When I turn them off, that little green clock comes back on, and that's a fast style. It's good for working. And by default, a lot of the templates that SketchUp provides us with has the profiles on. And that just helps us see things that are intended to be rounded, like upholstery, any soft goods. That gives us a little bit more information, but it does slow down our working style here. So I like to turn mine off until I'm ready to present. Next, like I said, our faces are gray. So when I draw a rectangle, I can see a slightly gray face. And that just helps me see the difference between the background and what I've drawn. If we use the default front color, which again is white, it's hard to see what is the backdrop and what is a face. So again, I like to make sure that my faces are slightly gray when I'm starting in a top view. It's easier to see when we orbit, but top view down, it's hard to see if the faces are white, what is a face, and what's the background. All right, I'm going to delete that. And again, my edges, profiles are off and they are black. When I go to my tracing image scene, I have pretty much the same, but now the edges are orange and I'm in X-ray mode. So that if I slide a image below this, I can trace over it while still seeing through my faces here. I also have orange edges because sometimes it's hard to see what is the image and what is something that I've drawn. If there's a lot of dark lines and wall shading, things like that, wall thickness, post-shade walls. In my image, it's hard to see what's an edge on top of that. So I like to turn my edges orange just to see those edges. Again, the face is gray. Next up, we have tracing DWG. Looks the same, but we are coloring it by material so that it shows us those different edges of the DWG file. I don't have one in here right now, but that's a good starting point for that, is to color by material so that those edges will show as different material and we can trace over it. in orange. Next up, we've got our working scene. This is a scene that I have set in every file. These scenes here, I may or may not have the ones across the top, those different starting points. I may just right-click, delete them. If I'm not starting with a DWG or I'm not starting with an image, I'll just delete them once I get started. But my working scene is always in there. This scene has a fast style. The shadows are off and my ceiling tag is turned off. So let's go ahead and head over to our tags panel and you can see the ceiling tag is turned off. And that just helps me not have to fly under the ceiling and work on the space. I can have a fast style. This is just going to be my scene that I pop back to quickly so that I can work on my file in a fast way. I don't have to sneak around the ceiling or the slower styles. So that's my working scene. I make adjustments to it if my file is bigger, like let's say it's a larger home or a commercial space, I may have to zoom out and then right-click update this scene. But for here, it's just starting with one small space. Next up, we have our floor plan, and this is going to give us a section cut of the space, usually about 5 foot high, maybe a little bit higher depending on what's going on. I'm going to go back to my working scene just so that you can see those section cuts here. So that floor plan cut right here is what we're looking at in this scene. And you'll also notice it changes to black and white, and the walls are now shaded or section filled, post shade, whatever you want to call it. We'll look at our styles here. And for some reason, it's not showing us the thumbnail of what we have here, but this is the style that we have, my Elevation 1 style. And if we were to take a look, you can see my profiles are now back on so that I can see those rounded edges. We're not seeing them here. I'll show you in a moment what I mean by that. But also we have our faces are now showing as a hidden line style. So I've kind of developed this style to use over and over again in every floor plan scene and elevation scene that I have so that it's consistent. I don't have to edit it every single time I want to create an elevation or a floor plan. And then we just have our different elevation scenes. I have 4 of them set, and then I make adjustments as needed when I put my project in there, which is what I'll show you right now. And here's a project using that template. You can see all of the same scenes are there, but now there's a project in the file. So once I get to this point and I'm not doing an on-site measure or tracing a DWG or an image, I will usually just delete those scenes because I don't need them anymore. So I'll do a right-click delete, or I'll head over to my scenes panel and select them and just hit the minus. Now, it is showing as thumbnails, but in general, I like to have my scenes show as a list. So I'll go to my list, and that way I can see for sure which scene I'm deleting. So again, tracing image, delete, and then tracing DWG, also delete. Now it just kind of keeps my scenes list nice and short. I do see a lot of files come across my desk that have a lot of scenes that don't really look like they're being used. There's duplicates that look really similar. Be sure to try to keep your scenes list fairly short. It keeps your file size lower. It helps you stay more organized, and it really helps when you head to the layout phase of your project to keep that list lower so that you don't have to fish around for the correct scene. All right, so let's look at, again, we have our working scene. It's sort of a topish angled view of my project. And I have the ceiling turned off and my shadows are turned off. I also have a fast style. So again, we've got our tags. You can see my tag structure here. I have my ceiling off. Let's also pause and take just a closer look at the tags here. You can see I have an image tag that is helpful for if I'm tracing over an image. That tag is turned on in that tracing image scene. Now, again, I probably don't need it, but I like to leave my image in the file until just always. I don't really ever delete the image if that's my starting point, just in case I need to go back and reference it. I also have a high poly tag, which stands for like a high polygon count piece in my file. So let's say maybe this light fixture here has a lot of polygons. I will tag that so that it's off in my working scene so that my working scene stays fast. But you can see when I turn it back on, now I've got a sofa and I've got my light fixture. And those will be on for things like a floor plan view, an elevation view, any interior perspective views. So those items are going to be on. All right, back to working, and now they're off. So depending on the entourage, the supporting pieces, I may toss things on the high poly tag just so that they're out of my way. When I'm working on the bulk of the design, I can have them back on to support it in elevation view. All right, so back to our floor plan view. Let's talk about how to make adjustments here. So you can see I've got a lamp here over the sofa, but it's missing some pieces because the section cut is so low. So if we want to raise that up, I have the icon set in my toolbar up here to turn on the section planes, but you can also find that under View, Section Planes, and then just click on the orange plane, the active plane, and you can tap M for move and just move that up slightly. So in this case, I don't want to go up too high because I would be going into that area above the buffet. I want to be able to see below that, but I don't want to chop off that light fixture either. So I'm going to go right about there. It just depends on what's in your project, how high your windows are, what you're trying to show. But make sure that you're trying to at least show the windows and the doorway openings, of course. All right, so when I click back on my floor plan, you can see I'm still seeing my doors, that area above the buffet, but now I see that light fixture in full. Because we've talked about profiles, I want to tell you that they are now on. So if I go to my edges, my profiles are on in elevation and plan view scenes. If I turn them off, you can see that it's not quite as detailed. So this is on and then off. And this is especially important if you're not using ambient occlusion. If I turn that off, we really lose a lot of information. So turn them back on. You can see that sofa, I get a lot more detail. And this is with them off. So if you're having a hard time with your black and white styles, try turning on your profiles and your ambient occlusion. Again, I use the same style for my elevation scenes, so let's take a look there. Now this one, the elevation isn't really cutting through much at all. So I'll go back to View, Section Planes. And again, the orange one is the one that is active, so I'll pre-select that with my Select tool, M for Move, and just move it back to where I would like it. If I want my sofa in there, I'll leave it here. If I want to just show the fireplace, I'll leave it there. Now back to elevation, and it's chopping off all of those pieces. It's slicing through the model right where I dropped it. Okay, back to elevation 2. I really enjoy having these elevation scenes, even if I'm not presenting an elevation to the client or to the drawing set, because I can see if something is where it's supposed to be in elevation. You can see that this light fixture is not installed in the ceiling in SketchUp. So I can just tap my move tool, hit the up arrow, and then I'm going to snap it to the ceiling there. So make sure when you're moving things in this 2D parallel projection view that you're using those arrows to inference lock. All right, elevation 3, same thing. This may or may not be the right direction, and I actually don't need this one because I don't have a wall back here. So I'll just delete it. Right click, delete. And I could rename these to fit with what's on each wall. Of course, every project is different, so I don't necessarily need to always have the same names. All right, so again, one more time, I'll turn on that elevation and move it back to right about there. Click back on my elevation, and now I have a view of the front door. And that is how I use my template. Of course, I will add more scenes for interior views because this is a 3D model, but this is taking me a few steps ahead of having to create those section cuts because that's something that gets kind of tedious. So I just have my base set of section cuts ready to go along with the styles so that I can add even more of them. We'll show you how to set a perspective scene as sort of a bonus. There's a lot of ways to get into this view. You can use your position camera tool. I prefer to just use my orbit and pan tools and zoom tools. So I'll go to my styles, let's talk about finding this working style. My tags, I'm going to turn my ceiling on. I'm going to turn on my high polygon count objects, and I'm just going to orbit a bit and get a good view here. I need to probably create a style. Let's see, I've got my on-site measure. Yep, let's just add another style. And I'm going to go to edit and make some edits here. So I'll turn on my ambient occlusion and hit update. I like to name my styles after I add them. I'm going to call it interior view and then hit update to lock that in. And let's see, I may check out my profiles. I'm going to turn those on, and I like to bump them down to a 1 and then update. And then one more thing, I'm going to go to my shadow settings and play with that a bit. I like to start with use sun for shading and move that dark slider up ever so slightly. All right, so I'm going to set a scene here and then take a little look at how it's going. I'm going to right click, add a scene, and right click, rename it interior. That maybe we have multiple interior views. And now I'm going to make some changes because there's a few things that I don't like about this. I think I'm going to widen the field of view. So I'm going to click on the magnifying glass. My field of view is at 35. So I'm going to bump it up to 45, 4, 5, enter. And then just zoom myself in a little bit like that. And then I'm going to right click, update that scene because I want to lock in that change on that camera view. One other thing that I like to check in reference to my camera view is to go to see how high the eye height is above the floor. So I'll go to, let's see, view, camera, and then position, look around. So, excuse me, camera, look around, and then you can see your eye height. So mine is at 4'7" right now. That's pretty okay, but I'm going to type 5 foot, enter, and then click drag to position that a little bit better. I may even go up to 5'5" and then drag down a little bit to make some adjustments there, just so that I can check to see if it really is at a human eye height. So it's a, medium-sized human, 5'5". I'm a little taller than that, but I think I'm happy with that view. I'm going to right-click, update that interior view. Lastly, I'm going to check out my tags because I do have a door swing here. And if you've taken my online classes, you know that we put our 2D door symbols on a tag so that we can turn them off in this interior view, but have them on for our floor plan views. So I'll go to my 2D symbols folder here and turn off my 2D window, door and window symbol. That went away. You can see it's on, now off. And if I had any 2D furniture symbols, I would also turn those off. Now, again, right-click, update that. So that's how you would alter these scenes to fit your project. And I can see that I turned off my, let's see, I think I accidentally turned off a tag. All right, so this guy over here is tagged to the 2D door and window symbol. So I actually need to move that off of it. So you can see that's why it went away. That's mistagged. It's tagged improperly. So I'm going to go ahead and select that and just pop it back to untagged. I'm okay if it's on in every scene here. So I'll put it on untagged so that, again, when I go back to my interior view, the 2D door symbol goes away, but not this guy. All right. So as I was saying, that's how you would change scenes to fit your needs, your style, your project. This is a very basic template for me to start with. It would be much more complex and detailed, and the scenes would be longer. The tag list would be longer if it was a multi-level commercial project or even multi-level residential project. I would have many more tag folders, but this is a good starting point for me for most of my projects that's like just a few spaces big. Once you have your file set up, you've got all of your scenes, your tags, your styles dialed in and corresponding with their scenes, then you're ready to save as a template. Again, I have this cube-like thing here just as a placeholder. I could delete that if I wanted to, because I'm not going to use that in every project. I'm going to leave it there. You can delete yours, but I'm going to go to File, save as template. So not save as or save copy as, save as template. And that's going to add it to that template list in the Welcome to SketchUp screen. So I'm going to name mine Tammy's favorite template. And I'm going to put a 2 because I already have a file name by Tammy's favorite template. And you can also choose to set it as the default template. That means that every time you go to File New, it's going to start with that template. So I'm going to hit Save, and it's going to start a new file using that template. You can find these again under Help, Welcome to SketchUp, and then More Templates, My Templates. And you can see it's now hearted this second one. I've got 2 very similar ones, but that second one that I just created is now our default indicated by the heart. So I hope that helps. Again, if you just want to grab my template called Tammy's Favorite Template, I've linked it below, and you can grab that along with some instructions for a small fee. And that just kind of helps me keep that up and running. And I hope that was helpful. Again, let me know what your template has in the comments below.